Tesco's, 1, 2, 3, Tesco's.
Hi everybody. Am I good at me?
Yes, sir. Austin, you staying in there with him?
Yeah, we're not. That's
You
something.
might as well learn about
Just close the door.
You might as well learn about something you can. Good morning everybody and welcome to In Conversation with Darian Fan, where we talk about real issues not only facing our community but our world. Today is March 1st, 2019. Even though today is March 1st, we here on In Conversation would like to conclude Black History Month by talking about a very interesting subject. This subject came to my attention when I was just surfing through YouTube and I saw a video about a woman who tells this story about the former slave, the slave who taught Jack Daniels how to make whiskey. And so I clicked on the video and I looked at the video and actually this story is very touching. And so we're gonna talk about that today as I tell you the story of the true story behind what we know as Jack Daniels. As we all know, synonymous with the American liquor and or spirit industry, Jack Daniels has run synonymous at many of our family gathering social parties for years. But what you don't know is the story behind Jack Daniels. According to legend, Jack Daniels, an orphan, was trained to make whiskey at a very young age by a preacher and master distiller, Dan Call. But what you don't know is the story of Nathaniel Uncle Nearest Green, who was the first African American master distiller in the United States on record. But first, before I get into the story, I want to tell you the difference between Kentucky bourbon and pure Tennessee whiskey. The difference is, even though it is brewed the same, the only difference is what is called, Tennessee whiskey goes through what is called the Lincoln County process, actually, which is named after the county that Uncle Nearest lived in. We find around 1820, him being born, Uncle Nearest being born in Maryland, and around 1856, little is known about his early childhood and upbringing. Around 1856, we find him rented out to a preacher and distiller by the name of Dan Call because Call had to make a decision between the church or I'm going to continue to sell whiskey. Call still chooses the ministry, but still has the distiller on his property, still has the distiller on his property, and so he lets Uncle Nearest, Nathaniel Green, run the distillery. Now, at the same time, a little orphan boy around 10 years old is hired out to Dan Carr as a chore boy, came to the Carr farm as a chore boy. You know, toting water, milking cows, etc., etc., etc. He was very curious one day about the smoke coming out. He asked Reverend Carr, "What is that?" And basically, he's like, "If you want to know what's over there, I'll tell you what's over there." He takes the boy to Uncle Nearest, and he says, "Tell this boy everything you know about Tennessee whiskey making." So he teaches the boy. The boy becomes, in time, the boy becomes a master salesman. He sells to soldiers in not in World War II, in the Civil War and stuff like that. And of course, when it was illegal to sell whiskey to soldiers, but Dan Carr, but Jack Daniels only stood 5'2" his whole life, so he looked like a kid. So he sold whiskey. In time, the boy built his own distillery, and the little boy's name was Jack Daniel. Well, we know him as Jack Daniel. The world knows him as Uncle Jack. But who you don't know about is Uncle Nearest. When Jack Daniels built his first distillery, Nearest Nathaniel Green was Jack Daniels' first master distiller. And in a time when blacks and whites were racially divided, Jack Daniel and Nathaniel Green, well, Uncle Nearest, worked side by side. And some of Uncle Nearest's descendants still work at the factory. So why is it that Uncle Nearest's story is not in the history books and not given credit? Really, that's not Jack Daniels' fault, because in his official autobiography, Nearest Green's name was mentioned about 20 times. It wasn't until 2015 that Fawn Weaver, who is a well-selling author and daughter of a Motown songwriter, saw the story in the New York Times, who was living in LA at the time. And basically, she ended up moving to Lynchburg and dedicating her whole life to this story. And they now have, there's the Nearest Green Foundation, and of course, there's actually a Uncle Nearest brand of whiskey that is not owned by Jack Daniels. That is called Uncle Nearest, to honor the first African American master distiller in the United States. But you know, it's funny how stories like this get overlooked. You see what I'm saying? When a black family or a white family has has been like this for years and we know nothing about it. But who would have thought? And actually, like I said, the only difference between Kentucky bourbon and Tennessee whiskey is the charcoal mellowing process, which is now called the Lincoln County process, which is the county in which Uncle Nearest lived and brewed his whiskey. And basically he taught other distillers, Jack Daniels and everything, his process, which is the charcoal filtering and mellowing process. So you know there are a lot of interesting things in our history. All you have to do is take a look. We'll be right back after these messages.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
No.
Welcome back to In Conversation with Darian Fan. Today, my topic is the greatest whiskey maker that the world never knew. The story of Nearest Nathaniel Green. It's funny how Nearest Nathan Green. It's funny how, like, we celebrate Black History Month and we never hear about these stories. The reason why I wanted to talk about this story is because one, it shows how blacks and whites can come together and be mutually respected. And how a friendship between an orphan boy and a slave together built one of the greatest brand names in America. So here's to Uncle Nearest, and actually, I don't know if Uncle Nearest is actually sold in Ohio yet, but you can go to www.unclenearest.com to purchase the whiskey. Join me next week as we highlight Disability Awareness Month here on In Conversation with Darian Fan. And stay tuned. Up next, L&T Sports Blitz. This is WUCP.